Hello. On behalf of Alpha Omega team, I would like to take a few minutes to explain how you can create a simple geometry in Ansys SpaceClaim. I showed you the geometry, what it's gonna look like. Now let's go ahead and start. First of all, you should notice that if you come to File, SpaceClaim Options, and you come and click on Advanced, make sure you check Enable Constraint-Based Sketching, which helps you to have more options to modify your sketch. And you should know that restart is required, which means that once you check on it and if you want to use it, you need to close your software and then reopen it. Since I already did that, I don't need to do that. So let's go ahead and start my sketch. Another important thing is you should know whichever option you hold your cursor on, there are some shortcuts. For example, if you hold your cursor on line, you see it says line, and in parentheses you see an L, which means that if you simply push the L key on your keyboard, the line will be selected. Or you can simply come up here and then click on line. So I want to draw a line, so I'm just going to go to pen view so I can have a better vision of my sketch, and I'm just going to draw a couple of random lines that can help me to lead to the geometry that I want to create. Completely random, I am drawing some lines without any dimension or anything. And here's what we have. I want to exit this line command that I am in, so I'm just going to simply push escape. So I need to define some dimensions. I need to define some constraints. Let's start with some constraints. So here we have horizontal constraint. As you saw this sketch, I need this one to be horizontal. I need this one to be horizontal. And I'm just going to click on each and individual line that I need them to be horizontal. I have some vertical lines. I'm just going to click on vertical constraint, and I'm going to make sure all of them are vertical. Now, all of my sketch is constraint in terms of horizontal and vertical. So if I just click on it and try to stretch my sketch, you can see there are little squares in the corners, which means that those horizontal and vertical lines are perpendicular with respect to each other. I need to add some dimensions. I simply come here and click on dimension. Click on the line. I'm gonna need some dimension for my line here. So I'm just going to put number 30 millimeter. For here, I'm gonna add another dimension. There are many ways that you can fully define your sketch. You can define all of them dimensions, you can define different constraints to fully define your sketch. But you have to make sure if you are a professional CAD user, you don't have the same dimension defined multiple times in your CAD model. That is why usually professional designers, they use constraints in their model, so once they update one of the dimensions, the rest of the dimensions will be updated automatically. For this model, I am going to simply define just a couple of dimensions. This should be 10 automatically. And if you can see, if I over constrain my sketch, I'm gonna have an error that will tell me that I have over defined my sketch. What does it mean, over defined? So this edge is supposed to be 30 millimeter. So and they are all perpendicular with each other. All the lines that I have in this sketch. I have this dimension defined 10 and this dimension defined 10 as well. So this dimension will be automatically 10 and I don't need to define that. So I'm going to click on it and simply click delete. And my sketch is good again. I'm going to exit all the commands if I am in any of them or any of them are pre-selected. And I'm going to drag my sketch to see what is not defined yet. So I'm going to define some dimensions for these two edges that I have here as well. This should be automatically 15. So this is an over-defined dimension. So I'm going to simply click on it and click on delete. Now let's move. As you can see, my sketch is fully defined, but it is free to move in my sketch plane. So I need to define dimensions between the axis that I have, the X and Z axis that I have here, and my sketch to fully define the position of my sketch. So I'm gonna click on dimension and I will make sure this is 15, and then I am going to define another dimension here. I'm going to define it as 5 millimeter. Now my sketch is fully defined. As you can see, the color of my sketch is blue. Blue means my sketch is fully defined and no further constraint is required. To test that, I'm going to click on my sketch, try to drag it, and you see all of the constraints will show up and all the dimensions are there, so I'm good to go. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click on End Sketch Editing, and it will automatically bring me to the 3D mode. So it is ready for me to extrude, or as SpaceClaim says, pull my sketch. So easily you can come to design and click on pull, or you can on your keyboard push the P button and it's going to provide you the option to pull your sketch. This is a closed face. We only can pull closed faces, of course. So I'm going to, as you can see, pull it and in different dimensions. So if I want to add a dimension for my pull, I'm going to simply click on it and on your keyboard push the space bar. And it will let you to input your dimension. I'm going to add 2.5 millimeter to my geometry or pulling. And now it is time to cut some parts of my component that I created. So in the model and the geometry that I showed you, here we have a little rectangle cut from my geometry. Back to sketch. I'm going to click on rectangle, or I can simply push R button on my keyboard, and here I am in sketch. As you can see, this is not the sketch plane that I want to draw my sketch. You don't need to be worried about that. You can just simply click on the plane that you want to sketch your rectangle, and then I am going to use a shortcut. I'm going to push V on my keyboard, and here I am. I have the sketch. Now I can go ahead and draw the rectangle that I want to cut from my model. Here it is. Now it's time to add some dimensions. 6 millimeter and 4 millimeter. Now I need to fix the position of this rectangle in my sketch plane. So if I push the escape button, drag my rectangle, I can see that it easily can move. I don't want that happens. So I'm going to click on dimension and define a dimension here. This is what I normally do. I define a dimension to fix the position of my sketch. You can do different things. You can use different constraints to do that. I define a sketch. I define a dimension to do that. And 2 is good. And as you can see, it is blue color, which means that it is fully defined. So I'm gonna push escape button on my keyboard. I'm going to try to drag it. It is fully defined. So I'm going to say end sketch editing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same pull command to cut this rectangle in this component. You can again push the spacebar and define a dimension. Of course, if it is more than 2.5, it's going to cut through the entire component. Now, I need to have 2 holes in 2 sides of my component. I'm going back to sketch. I have a circle here. I need to create a circle to basically to be able to pull those cylinder on both sides of my component. Or I can simply click on C again. Again, whatever plane you want to draw your sketch, you need to just click on it. SpaceClaim will create that plane for you so you can easily create your sketch, and then push V button on your keyboard, and here we are. I'm going to zoom in, create a circle, create another circle. There are different ways to create those cylinders. I'm going to do for each of them different ways to create those so we can better understand how SpaceClaim is working. Here we are. And now I'm going to say and sketch editing. I'm going back to 3D. Again, pull. We need a hole here. Easily cut that circle out, and now I'm going to create this cylindrical face. I'm going to add 5 millimeter dimension here. And now for this guy here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull. And now I can create a circle on top and then cut it out from here. So I'm gonna push C on my keyboard, click on the face that I want to create the sketch, push V on my keyboard, and then create. I didn't talk much about dimension because if you know how to add dimensions, if you know what steps you need to take to create your geometry, dimensions really don't matter. So my focus in this video will be more to empower you how to use different tools to create your component. I'm going back to Sketch. I'm going to say end sketch editing. By the way, you don't need to click on end sketch editing all the time. You can just simply push the escape button on your keyboard. I'm going to use the pull command again and cut that circle out. As you saw, my component has another feature that I need to create. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on line and I'm going to start my sketch on this plane. I'm going to push V button. So here I'm going to draw a line. As you can see here, it's very important. It is already creating you the degree that you want to draw your line. If you push Tab button on your keyboard, you can switch between them and you can define an angle and the line dimension that you have. I want it to be 90 degree, so I will leave it there. And for my dimension, I want it to be 10 millimeter. Same here. Let me just draw this line as well. And of course, this is going to be 10. All right, now what I want to do is I want to create a circle and use trim option to have a better and cleaner sketch. And basically draw whatever I want. I'm going to click on the center of my line and go all the way to the end. Now it's time to use trim option. Trim option is simply located here, trim away, or you can push T on your keyboard and use trim option. I'm going to trim these lines away. Now I need the exact same sketch. So as you saw at the beginning of the video in the geometry to create the feature that I want to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use offset to offset my lines in this sketch. I'm going to add dimension 1 millimeter here. Same for this line, 1, and same for this line, 1. Now it's time to define some dimensions here. Make sure these two are tangent. So I'm going to click on tangent constraint. First line and second line, it says tangent constraint has already been defined. So I don't need to do anything. These two, and these two, and these two. You can see the history of the commands that you used here. You can see what did you create at what time, and basically you can have a clear history of all the features that you created in your component. You can see all errors. If you have any issues, you can go ahead and fix your geometry. Now, let's go ahead and end sketch editing. Let's go ahead and pull. This is the geometry that we were interested to create. And here we go. Pool is a very powerful option in 3D modeling in SpaceClaim. For creating any round, we can use Pool to create different types of rounds. Let's go ahead and see what Pool can do. You can click on one edge and pull, and if you're interested for any specific dimension, you can push spacebar on your keyboard and add the dimension that you're interested for your pool to have. Same here. You can pull and have round, space, 0.5 millimeter, and here we're going to add another round. Double click on any edge or face will help you to select all the edges or faces in your component. For example, here I am interested to select both of these edges so I can create a round here. I'm going to simply double click on one of them and it will select all of them that are connected with each other in the same line. You can do it for your entire model as well. You can come here, double click on it, it will select that. If you triple click on it, it will select the whole edge of this component. Now, let's go ahead and create a round here. I'm going to use Pool. You should know that here you can create different types of rounds in this corner. You can once left click on it, and here is going to give you different options to have different types of rounds. Whichever you are interested. This is a better round. I'm going to select this. I'm going to do the same. Let's create a round here. Half a millimeter around here. Half a millimeter around here. And simply double click and create another half a millimeter around here. And I want to change the shape of that round. And here we go. Now I want to create some round on top of here as well. I'm going to go ahead and click on this edge, and this edge. And here we go. You can select all of them and create your round. And done. Here's a simple component that I created. My focus was to use different tools, different options to empower you to learn how you can create different rounds. Of course, you can be curious yourself. Go ahead, click on different options and try to create the same geometry in different dimensions with different constraints and enjoy. Thank you very much for paying attention to this video. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know what you think. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for further training. Thank you very much and have a good day.